Karen Rogers, thanks for joining the U-School podcast. You are here, one, because we're neighbors, and two, because you're smart. And we're going to try to kind of pull out some of that smartness today. No pressure. If you can't form a coherent sentence, we will do some wonders in editing. But we're here to, one, get to know you. And secondly, there's parents and educators who listen or watch this who are really keen on helping their kids grow up well. And I know that's obviously near and dear to your heart. So before we get into the topic, could you introduce yourself kind of professionally and a little context to who you are personally?
Yeah. Well, I am Karen Elaine. I've been going by that since the pandemic. Thanks to the Karen movement, messed up my beautiful name. So I added on my middle name, and I'm very satisfied with it. It's my whole self now. Yes, I have been a lover of children and family since college. I studied child development, and I really fell in love with what I felt like was given the key to a child's heart. And there was a director, a professor, she was the doctor of the entire department. And while many of my friends were going a credential route at the time, I fell in love with early childhood, and I wanted to be her. She was a director of it, and the power of influence you have of families, and what I learned about the science of the brain and how early it starts. I couldn't not be part of that. Now, so that's my guts and glory from the beginning. Like, that's really where my essence comes from. I've spent a lot of years doing work, starting schools, revamping schools. I love that. That's my whole vibe, is like getting in there and shaking it up, trying to get them accredited, and just all the things where we can make it excellent. So not just status quo, but really pushing it. So that's when we started I got to be part of a nonprofit for 10 years, running all the way through the full elementary years. And that's been, that was so fun to basically, at that point, it's all volunteers. So there's no paycheck when you're working with volunteers, there's no paychecks for motivation. So it has to come from vision. So it was vision and inspiration. So that's where I got to spend a lot of years just cultivating leadership teams, and then people teaching like 200 something people how to teach. How do you teach children? What's the essence of what teaching is? So that was a lot of fun for a long time. And then I worked in special ed for a while, and that was really exciting to come back into education in the realm of talk about learning styles. So many different, my gosh, especially when you start in early childhood, they have yet to figure out diagnosis. So everybody's trying to figure out, so they kind of all get lumped into special day classes, but they're not all autistic. So there's so many different types of children with different types of learning styles. So, we're using heavy mats for people with sensory issues, and then we're moving chairs far away from those that are like throwing chairs, and we're trying to go, those that can't hear, we get them really close. And then with the vision issues so there's just so many different ways to get all the kids. And then we fostered and adopted for a lot of years. So I did a lot of foster care for many children, and eventually adopted 4 children out of 3 out of foster care and 1 at private adoption. So I've done a lot of work with families, and I care a lot about all types of children coming from all types of places.
So if you're listening or watching this, you're welcome. I picked the right person for this topic. And obviously your passion comes through, Karen. We're talking about learning styles, and I frame this in a larger context, not just specifically about education, but about helping a kid have the building blocks and the foundations to live life well. And obviously academic success is an important part, especially to parents and educators, for their kids. But to widen that out, part of my question for you, and I'm just curious what you have to say, is when it comes to helping a kid figure out his or her learning style, why is that important? Not just for academic success, but why do you think it's important for life success?
Great question. Well, the obvious for life success is if you don't feel successful early, you're going to be inhibited later. We see it on teams all the time. I was just talking with my director about this yesterday. Why is it that some people on teams just aren't as successful as other people? I'm like, well, because they weren't successful early, and so they don't know how to be successful on a team now. So it's just that it's like it goes all the way through your life. And it affects your career, it affects your family, it affects everything. Now, what's exciting when we talk about why, for how do we figure it out, why would we figure out learning styles with young ones? What we know, from science based, from we have data for it, is starting. There's beautiful graphs. I always show my families every year, like, here it is. Here's the graph, data proven graph. At kindergarten, at 5 years old, it is proven. I mean, there's really studies on it. It's amazing. It'll blow your mind. It's proven that at 5 years old, you are at the peak of your creativity, of your innovation and your inhibition. You're uninhibited. You are uninhibited to go share things with the rest. So you're super creative. You're uninhibited. You got your big loud voice on. Like, it's proven. They have it. It's like you want to know something going on in the world. You invite a kindergartner. If I'm a CEO of a company, I would like to invite a kindergarten through third grade. Like, bring it. If I'm a CEO, I would really challenge that. I think that's where it's exciting, because they're so uninhibited. Now, the data shows sharp decline all the way through the school years. And where does it end? Retirement. And at retirement, you see it go back up. It's very interesting. So all the way through school years, and then even through our workforce, by that point, we're just not that creative, and we're not that uninhibited, and we just don't have that big of a voice. So it's really scary and really sad, and that alarms me when we think of education. That's why I started in early childhood, because that's where the brain is like, oh. So I always tell my kids, brain on fire, like my goal. And I moved grade levels. I jumped like a few grade levels this year. So I'm in third grade now this year, and I love it, because I want to teach all the grade levels. Like, it's so exciting to teach the different ones to see. But the goal is, how could we work harder and better to see that all the way across? Like, what if it doesn't have to decline? What if by the time we're leaving our education, we're so alive and inspired, and we believe in ourselves so deeply that we're ready to launch into the workforce and now be 10 times more creative? That's how I think it connects.
How do you do it? How do you help a kid? Or if you're talking to a family, how do you help parents help their kid unpack how they learn? What does that even mean? I've heard of the big things: auditory, visual, kinesthetic. I'm just curious. I'm coming to you kind of like an idiot. I don't know.
Well, yeah, in school, we call it universal learning design, so it's all about UDL, because we're trying to figure out, like, there are ways there's a way to design your instruction where you're kind of bringing all those in, right? So my best day teaching is when I've got full gestures. So you're seeing movement, you're engaged, my voice inflection is changing. I've got visuals, so you can see it. There's something you can see, and we're touching and doing. You're trying to involve. There's actually activity happening in your body. Like, it's whole brain learning. There's all kinds of terms for it, but it's like, you're not going to learn it. So we'll be like, mirrors up, and do what I do, and suddenly there's just so much more engagement. And we're not going to remember. You talk at me, I'm done. I'm not going to remember anything you say, but you might remember if I showed you an image and made you repeat it, and then we did it. Like that, it's that kind of connection. So when we talk about how, well, I mean, I think everything with this starts with a relationship. So the foundation is relationship. So if you're totally onto it with asking the parents already know. Sometimes there's some surprises, and that's fun, and that's where teachers and parents can kind of partner together, because there's different facets of kids you can kind of see in different, or ask your family members in your community, like, there's different things you see that rise in your kid, but a lot of times the parents kind of already know. So that's always the best thing in the beginning of the year, is like, tell me more about your child, and really getting more creative on how to ask that, and ways to engage families with that. Like, I got 4 kids. I get a letter from a teacher that's not, I'm just like, I don't know, he's a good kid. Like, it's too much. We're oversaturated. So it's really trying to figure out, how do you partner with the parents to really learn more about their kid, because they already know. As a educator, you're not going to be able to find learning style if you don't know them. You got to, everything starts with the relationships. Are students able to feel safe and loved? To be able to, beautifully articulate what they need and how they learn. Like, do they feel safe enough to even be able to tell you that? No, if they don't know you, they're not going to even be able to tell you that, to discover that. Or do they feel safe and loved enough where they actually can discover it? And the whole point is discovery, to go, wow, I noticed this. Did you see that? Well, actually, I think I might be good at this. I wonder about, like, you just start building this relationship. So that's where it gets exciting. Like, nobody can teach a mind. You can't just teach my mind until I know that I'm loved and cared about. That's where that starts. It's relationship.
Let's pretend just for a second I'm a parent and I've got a kid who's in a classroom who doesn't have a passionate creative teacher like you, who understands the different styles, and it's one way, their way or the highway. And so how do you help a kid given that context? And maybe trying to meet with the teacher doesn't really go well. What, you know, if you're in the classroom and you're a kid, what can you, how do you kind of navigate that? And I know that it becomes even more probably relevant in middle school or high school when you have a series of different teachers and they all have different styles. So what do you do if your style as a student isn't matching what you're getting?
All right, at that point, you got to already know. You've got to know what, so it's hard. It's a hard question. The first response is this is what we've all been doing. You advocate like crazy and try to get your kid in a different class, and try to sign up for the more creative school. And we're all trying to get there. I find it very interesting. You talk to most people, not all, but most people, and we're all trying to get to something more inspiring. And so that's something I think we all need to be mindful of and inspired by, because it's frustrating. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on educators where, it's like, well, we've got these things to meet, and I do find that this series usually works pretty well. And it's so hard to not get out of that once you kind of find like, it kind of works. It kind of tried and true, and now I'm not going to deviate. But then you start losing kids accidentally, and so so what do you do as you're a student? Hopefully you've had a chance to develop something. If not, what do we do? Great question. What do we do for kids who haven't discovered it? I mean, that's my heart and passion, is to help them discover it before they get that far. But let's just say you move me on over to middle school, and I got a whole land of students that don't know anything about their learning style. So obviously I think I would teach how to learn your learning style and how to, I would do that. But if you're not, I think as a parent, is what you can do is really help discover it on your own. So you're working with your student, trying to figure out, it's what you've already done as a parent. It's what every parent is really doing anyway. You guys already know your kids. So you're trying to help figure out, look, I'm finding that if I sit and do this with you, like, you're not going to hear me if I'm talking to you. But when you do it, when you show me, and I'll just say, show me, and you just test a few things out. Show me, let me see it, let me say it. Sometimes I have some students, and they'll just say, Mrs. Rogers, can I just record a video for that? And I have to think about it. I'm like, well, how important is that writing? Is that something I really need to see the technique, or did I just need them to explain to me how to compare and contrast? I don't know that I needed that to be fully written out in some detailed document. Like, I'm like, do a video for that. There's some options. And you should see the student. They get on there like, hello, my name is, and they just get going, and they're nail it. Like the connections they made with the text and the two texts, and together, I'm like, this person is made for TV, or I don't know. There's just some brains just work different, and you have to ask yourself, which thing do I have to die on? Is it on the like writing format, or if there is a writing format, which different way can we do a writing format? Like you're trying to help your kids discover what makes them tick, what makes it, like, you already know, like if they're really into gaming, then gamify it. Figure out how can you make that social studies project a game. Figure out how, and suddenly they smile. It's exciting.
That's cool. A totally alternative scenario, and I'm not sure if I can frame this really articulately. We'll see. Let's say you've got a kid. I've got a couple of them that breeze through school, and I'd say they're good at school. The way that they're receiving it, they're doing it well. Grades are fine, no problems. But the problem is motivation, excitement, interest, engagement. I don't see them necessarily passionate about learning. I mean, they're not digging in. They're not, like you use that phrase, their brain is not on fire. And as a parent, is that a concern? Number one, because they're doing well in school, and they're probably going to get off, go on the next track, the next train station, which is college. But through the lens of helping them build a meaningful life, that's a big bummer. And what I want to do is have conversations with them and help them explore what they're learning and how they're learning it. So again, I don't know how to ask that question necessarily, but what do you talk about with the kid who's just kind of doing it well and yet isn't coming alive?
As a parent or as an educator, or
sky's the limit? Yeah, I know.
Yeah. My daughter is one of those. My youngest daughter, she was getting straight A's, she was doing fine. Pretty stressed about it, like, really wanted to do well, but I didn't think it was anything exciting. Nothing, what are you learning? Tell me about, there's nothing exciting happening, And so, I pulled her for a variety of reasons and put her in this, new adventure that we're doing over here at the school. And it's been fascinating to listen, because I was just assuming maybe she would maybe not like it. It had a different format and it was more virtual or whatever. She was saying the opposite. And I said, tell me more. And she said, well, I mean, sure, I could go back to the other school. She's like, I just wouldn't learn anything. I said, what, no, no, no.
Hmm.
What do you mean you've got like straight A's? And
Yeah.
she's like, well, yeah, I mean, I just, it was the worksheets and stuff. Like I just memorized it and I don't remember. She's like, it's really weird, Mom. They do the pre-assessment here. And so they find out what I know ahead of time. So they say,
Hmm.
hey, we're going to learn this thing. Here's the pre-assessment. Show us what you know about it. And she's like, I know that I learned it at the other school. I know I'm supposed to know it. She's like, I just can't remember it.
Hmm.
She's like, here, when they teach things, I remember it.
Hmm.
I was like, well,
Yeah.
wow, say more about that. So it's been
Yeah.
fascinating to listen to, when you really listen to a 13-year-old try to
Yeah.
explain that to you, where she was doing just fine.
Hmm.
In fact, I would even say her grades are better than they are at the
Right.
school. I'm
Right.
like, what are you doing? But she actually finds it more challenging here. And she got so excited. It was the first time I'd ever seen her go. She like connected with her birth brother who's in Mexico. And she was
Hmm.
like, because he's really good at Minecraft. And she's like having him help her do this
No
huge
way.
project. She had to make this giant cathedral for this project for social studies or whatever. And I don't even know if she ever even presented, or I don't
Yeah.
need to know, honestly,
Right.
because the culmination wasn't the thing for me.
Yeah.
As a parent and as an educator, for the first time I saw her alive. I saw
Yeah.
her going and stopping at nothing to find whatever resource she could to
Yeah.
make something happen that she knew she couldn't even figure out on her own, and she wanted to figure it out. And that was, to me, that's the beginning. She'll still
Yeah.
remember that cathedral project forever. She'll
Yeah.
probably know a lot more about cathedrals
Right.
or whatever they're studying.
Yeah.
It's just, I hadn't heard
Yeah.
her talk about anything like that before. So before, it's just quick memorization, and that's not the same
Yeah.
as learning. And I want her to be excited about what she's going to do next and what she has to contribute. What is her note? If they don't leave
Right.
education knowing what their note is to play in the world,
Yeah.
and they're not
That's
going to
it.
be experts at it. I wasn't, but I had a few
Yeah.
inklings, and it was, a few moments where somebody pulled me aside and was like, say what's happening here with this writing. This is
Mm-hmm.
this
Yep.
is interesting. You got a gift here. I'm like, say
Yep.
what?
Right.
Like, it was very exciting,
Totally.
or a speech or something that I usually was terrible about, and all of a sudden I like kind of had this moment where something
Yeah.
came out, and they're like, ooh, right there, like that's where
Yeah.
you are. It's coming out, and I'm like, ah. So those moments where kids get to kind of shine and do something even
Yeah.
kind of crazy is really important.
Yeah, I love that, what you just shared. I love to have a high expectation that we share with our kids that presupposes there is an answer. So I expect you to find your note, which means you have a note. And that note is to give. And if that's a continuous conversation throughout the years, even when it's boring or dull, or they have a semester or a quarter that's just kind of lame and uninspiring, if you continue to ask that question, I like that there's an answer on the other side of that. And it might not come at 13. Hopefully it comes at 18, or maybe like you and I, it came a little bit later. But I knew it. I knew there was something out there, right? There's something for me to find, something for me to do that was great and meaningful and important. Just didn't know what. And the same thing with me. I had one teacher, there's 14, say something, not even a really great compliment, like, this is pretty good, what you're writing. And whoa, that can absolutely make a big difference. So thank you to that teacher who saw something and decided to say it. And to a mom who said, yeah, I agree. I think you are too. So thank you to a mom who, and in that partnership, look at my life. I write for a living. It's amazing.
Right.
Would you, to wrap up, would you share about what you're doing at Connect Academy? I think I love when parents can hear alternatives to the traditional. So please share about what you guys are up to.
Yeah, we're a school district here in Poway Unified, or a new school where we've started this year, and it kind of came under the umbrella of virtual at first, and it's something people are kind of learning and discovering, because what we've done is really under independent study, which really unlocks a whole lot of creative alternative options. When you're an independent study, there's some more loose, flexible things that you can do. And it's really fun because with independent study, it becomes more about what is best for kids for their flexibility and structure. So they get to kind of choose. So the schedule's very different. So it's not a typical and then you'll be online from this time all the way to this time. Like it's more, it's kind of every day is a little bit different. Like we're moving and grooving based on what the kids need. And sometimes it's meeting a lot more one-on-one meetings. I've never met one-on-one with so much with kids than I have here at the school. It's amazing. amazing. They're getting so
Wow.
much more one-on-one connection time, and times to free it up and do something different is exciting. What we do is it's more of a hybrid, and so we have a lot of different virtual. We have the different virtual schedule. So some of it's very consistent. Like every morning at 8:30 we log in and we have a connect time. Everyone in the school we connect. It's called connect time, and we connect with our students because we are relationship driven. It's literally our first part of our connected learner profile is relationship driven. So that's our biggest part of our passion here is building relationships. Then we move into our structure. However, we're structuring our curriculum. We really move more toward a project based. Is probably one word you could describe it, where the learning is more integrated. So I would think of it more as inquiry based learning. So we're kind of figuring out what the kids want to learn about. What do you want to learn about? We do a lot of that. What do you want to learn? Tell us more. We meet with them one-on-one. Let's have a meeting. Let's talk about your passion. What would you like to do for your passion project? So we're really trying to unlock that from a very young, even real early in the year. Just what are your passions? Let us help you discover them. Let's help find it together. So that's a really fun way to begin the year. And then we have on-campus experiences. So it's one of the taglines we use is the best of virtual and the best of on-campus. I mean, really the way of the future is going to have a blended format. COVID kind of revealed that. And you can go all negative with it and be like, virtual learning was terrible. And there's lots to say about that. But there was also some things that have changed the world. We're all now connecting, and we can do these kind of Zoom things and these live things on Riverside or whatever you guys are doing. There's all kinds of ways to connect in the world now that we didn't realize. And I'm finding as a teacher, there are some things I can do very effective online with students. And it's actually, in some ways, I'm faster. It's like amazingly slow when you've got a classroom and you're doing all this management. There's so much time spent, so much time wasted just managing. I talked to parents for years about that, and they're like, this person's frustrated from this little guy, and what are you going to do about this kid? And my kid's kind of bored because they have to wait a lot. They're waiting in line, they're waiting for their students to behave, and I'm like, gosh, that is often the world of that. Like, unless you're incredibly good at management, it's tricky. Or you get a year where you have not a very balanced classroom, it's a trickier year. Whereas when you're in this format, that just goes away. You're just moving and grooving. Everyone's comfortable and safe in their own environment, and you can just go. So then when they come on campus, we're getting the best of that. So instead of just filler projects, which we sometimes have to do when we're on campus, we're doing a lot of filler things as we do transitions and whatnot. There's no filler here, where everything is very intentional, very inspiring, very exciting. So when we come on, we do really great, exciting things and projects, and so it's fun to connect all the projects where it's all of the interdisciplinary. So it's all the different subjects are kind of coming together. So that's one way to call it. You can call it project-based, you can call it interdisciplinary. But the idea is you're bringing in all the different subjects, but the kids aren't remembering that they just did math that day. Like sometimes my math lesson's like pretty off the hook. But in general, it's like they remember that we were studying animal adaptations or the sustainable life of the Kumeyaay tribe. We're learning about all kinds of different things, and that's what they remember. But they forgot that they were like actually learning about fractions when we made the pizza garden. All they remember is the pizza garden. They forgot that it was totally about fractions and area and perimeter and all of the math concepts that we learned because we were doing it. So that's where it's exciting. Also, because it's independent study, has built in so much collaboration. So the staff has so much collaboration. We're able to create things that I've never seen be created anywhere else.
Wow.
There's such a high level of teachers that want something different. They want to have freedom to really create. So everyone's trying things that we've never tried, and it's so exciting. And it makes kids really excited. So I think the learner profile is really where it's at. We start with a relationship, we move into integrity. So we're all trying to align our thinking so that we're becoming integrous people. I think it's a structure you could use when you talk about what to do with parents. Like, how do parents do this? What do you say to a parent? Well, I'd say, create a structure. The structure is you want it to be relational. You want them to have integrity. You want them to learn to be communicative. How do they communicate in the world? What are the ways you're going to teach them how to communicate? How can they be reflective? So this is a huge part of our schools. We're very reflective. So all of our classrooms, everybody's teaching the students how to be reflective. When we look at connected to community, big piece of our school. How do we connect to our community and build relationships? We do these things called curiosity cabinets. So every Friday there's a curiosity, and students chose them. We said, what do you want to learn about? And the whole school voted for all the things they wanted to learn about in the world. And the teachers, based on our gifts and passions, tried to figure out and match to like the things that we could teach. And we all launch them. So some of them are virtual, some of them are on campus, and people choose their adventure and they get to literally learn whatever they want to learn about. And it's not even like we don't come up with all the lessons the kids do. We're like, okay, hey, it's some music group. So, I taught a music curiosity. I'm a musician. So, I was like, okay, here we go. What do we want to learn? They're like, well, I'd like to learn how to play guitar, or actually I'd like us all to do a song together, or actually I'm like giving kids chords and teaching lessons and listening to recordings. And because they created it. It's not like Mrs. Rogers' lesson. Like it was the kids created it. So that's where the collaboration and kind of the whole future focus piece comes. So we're having a good time. It's very fun.
Yeah, it sounds like the dream come true. That's awesome. You get to play there and create and see results too. So is there a way to connect with Connect? If you're not in Poway Unified, is there a way to follow you all?
Yeah. Connect things? Academy. You can totally. We have a website. Okay. We have a video that just came out, so we're very excited about that. We were just in the Poway Chieftain, like the magazine. I saw that. I've got it right here. Magazine. Yeah, we're in the magazine. Yeah. So we have a whole article there. Yep. And then I think we're not. I don't think this year we were having people from outside the district come in yet. Okay. But I think it's on the conversation block for this next year for sure. So right now it's just within Poway Unified, but we're hoping to see that open. We'll see what our options are.
Awesome. Well, Karen, thanks for joining us. You've got, I bet, thousands of hours of wise things to share, and we got to have like 20 minutes of it. So thank you. It's a gift to me, gift to the folks listening, and all our best to what you're doing. Keep doing it. And we hope it scales and grows. And what if that's what school was, what you're talking about, describing in general. So thank you.